Right, welcome back to another episode of Into the Valley. God's sake. 4-0 demolition at the Den. Horrible.
Yeah, we've feared something similar happening. I think we sort of tried to convince ourselves that because it was a derby game that we were going to really show up and actually give some fight and desire, and sort of the fans obviously coming in numbers, the players knowing how big an occasion it is. You always get the club sort of hype it up, don't you, with the videos and the sort of build up to the game, and I think you naturally get yourself in that headspace where you're like, could we actually do something here? Could we turn up and actually put a performance in? And that's ultimately what we expected. And what we actually got was a pretty limp, pathetic sort of display.
Well, I think I also thought going into it, it's the kind of game Nathan Jones thrives on.
Yeah.
And if I always see him as someone who will get the players going, and even if it's not in technical ability, it is in motivation. It is in leaving your heart out on the pitch, like kind of not being able to run by the end of the game. I just didn't think we saw it particularly much.
That's like what we saw at the beginning of the season. That's what we built ourselves on, was that sort of desire, that real like sort of die-hard attitude of like never giving up a ball. We literally saw the complete opposite of that. We saw players not even really giving 100%. We saw them sort of backing out of tackles, letting people run past, not showing any real desire. On top of that as well, like we also spoke last week about how our performances of late have been poor. We know that, we've been pretty bang average in most games for the last probably couple of months, really. But especially recently, the Sheffield United game, and then Derby as well. With that, I think was it the first half we were marginally better in the second, but we were still really poor in the first.
Even when we were getting marginally better, we went 2-0 down. And
but we made a point of saying that actually maybe this Derby game is that perfect opportunity to like get something and really like use it as a springboard to like then push on and like maybe sort of turn things around. And actually, all it's ended up doing is really denting confidence further. You're starting to see fans online and stuff like turning, especially against Jones now as well, where the people are massively questioning his tactics. They're massively questioning his selection in terms of the players on the pitch. And actually, this is where it starts to get a bit spiky and a bit dangerous, because if it really does snowball, you start to get a bit of a toxic atmosphere building at home, at the Valley. It can get pretty ugly.
And I think it does. And now, I think when you look at it, I watched the online fans forum that they did in the week, and the board very much give the indication, and of course they are going to do this, but they've never had any conversations around Nathan Jones or anything like that. But what I do think in moments like this is it's now for the players and Nathan Jones to kind of gain that confidence back and gain that kind of...
You've got to earn it, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got to earn it, 100%. And I think when you look at it, he's been at this... At Charlton, strangely enough, even for all the good things we can say about him, he has been in this position before. When we were in League One, there was a point, and I was very much at that point in the Jones out brigade. Maybe because of that and seeing the turnaround, I'm not feeling towards that way in any way at the moment. I'm very frustrated, and I think he's making some really poor decisions, and what we saw out on that pitch on a derby day, especially towards the latter parts of the game, is utterly unacceptable.
Yeah.
I'm glad he came out in his post-match and didn't try one of his stupid kind of we were on top here, we were on top, whatever, and try and paint a better light. He has put hands up, and I know probably quite difficult going to a derby day away and losing 4-0. You haven't got many places to go, but I just hope at some point there is a springboard moment to start something clicking, because it was, as I say, at times just pretty pathetic, really, wasn't it? The kind of effort and the kind of performance we were putting in there, and it didn't feel like all the characteristics that we have of our team and what Nathan Jones, felt like he was building and really successfully kind of rolling on, and then it just feels like it's hit a brick wall, and I don't quite understand where that's...
We know that there's shortcomings in the team. Like, we are aware of that, and we've spoken about it for a long time now. There's still areas in our team that are massively weak, that get exposed week in, week out now. The difference, I think, and we've mentioned it already so far, is before, at the beginning of the season, we were making up for that with our desire, with our the way of playing, where Jones is. That's the sort of DNA of a Nathan Jones side, is to really give everything, to run harder than the other team, and to actually press and make it life really difficult. We are making it so easy for every single team we come up against. But not only that, today of all days was the day to really, for all the players to put their everything into it. You want them coming off that pitch not even really like being able to walk. Do you know what I mean? In terms of the effort that they put in. And actually we saw the opposite. We saw players not giving everything, and we saw it felt, I mean, we conceded 3 of those goals in the last 10, 12 minutes. You know, the last
81st, 92nd, 93rd.
Yeah, the die embers of the game. And that's where, again, like, if you're going to lose, don't just throw it all away. Don't just let goals in. And that's my word, like, some of those goals were pathetic that we let in at the end.
Well, it felt like we gave up, didn't it? And that's
the unacceptable part of it.
It's completely inexcusable. When you were in a derby day, even if you're going to lose, go out with some pride.
Yeah.
At 2-0, I think we could have all walked away and said disappointing performance. Millwall aren't, look, for being kind of our rivals and the kind of occasion, they're not a bad side. Like, going to the Den and losing 2-0 is frustrating.
They're fourth in the Championship.
Yeah, it's not the absolute worst result in the world, albeit as a fan, it feels like it. 4-0 to me is an absolute drubbing, and that's unacceptable, especially in the fashion and the way in which it happened. Because, as you say, 100% it felt like the players down tools, and that you just cannot do that in any game, let alone a big derby game against the team that, well, realistically, a derby where we haven't won in 30 odd years.
Yeah.
And yeah, just pretty.
It was a painful watch, and we actually, I think I said it would be a game we'd watch through our fingers, and actually, I wanted to switch it off. I sort of kept it on because I wanted to see the game out, but you know, it was one of those where I just thought there's no way we're ever coming back into this. We had like 2 or 3 shots in the whole game. They had about 20 odd. The stats were disgusting when you look at it.
I think it's 23 shots, but the more concerning one was I think they had 21 shots in our box.
So that just shows you how far back we were pinned. We've spoken about this before, how the players clearly they can't enjoy just spending the whole game defending. What we've got a real problem with is any sort of outlets in these sort of games where we're under the cosh and we can't get ourselves out. We've got no one that will get their foot on the ball. We've got no real outlets on the wings. And when we do have that outlet in someone like TC, half time we decide to drop him back into left wing back. So the one player that's sort of trying to get us up the pitch, we're dropping them back, and then it's like, okay, well, we really have got no chance now.
Yeah, I mean, without doubt, there was some bizarre decision making. There was bizarre, and that comes from players, comes from management. We're going to change the setup of the video today. As we all know, when we get absolutely hammered, we don't like really talking about the individual performances.
I think there's too many anyway.
Yeah,
to do the whole
and it would end up going on and on and on. So I think what we're going to do today, we'll just have a quick kind of look over the game and our thoughts on it, which I prefer not to, but we will still do it. And then I think we just want to take a closer look at, I think there's a few factors really towards it, one of them being the system, the kind of substitutions and what kind of happened there, and there's some bizarre decisions, poor decisions. Another one is looking at the actual players themselves and just looking over what also felt like it's going wrong, not just today, but in other games, and where that kind of character and fight has gone. And I think the final one, we'll be looking over Nathan Jones as well, because I think he's got some serious questions.
Yeah.
I think he's got some big headaches. As I say, whether you're Jones in, Jones out, I think it's somewhat irrelevant. It seems like there's, for the people who are Jones out, he's not going to be going anywhere. I'm happy about that. But my God, do we need to see some changes and some, well, really proof that he is this kind of really good quality Championship manager who came down a level, never wanted to come down to League One, but did it to be in the Championship. We now need to now see what he's all about in these moments. So that's where we're going to go over the episode. So let's go into the game then. So the first half, it felt so. I thought when the game started, I actually thought we saw a little bit of a more positive start, especially in comparison to what we've seen recently. I felt it was kind of going back and forth. Their attacks felt more dangerous.
Yeah.
But I felt we were kind of going a bit back and forth. The problem is 7 minutes in, and it felt like Groundhog Day of how many days have we had this season where 3-4 minutes in, 6-7 minutes in, whatever it is, we're finding ourselves 1-0 down to a bit of a strange goal. I've watched it back quite a few times. Instantly, I thought Kaminsky had a stinker. The more I've watched it, I'm not 100% sure he has. He can't just leave it. And there's an argument to say it's kind of wrong place, wrong time. I don't know where else he could have hit it, and Ramsey's just kind of tracking back. I think the big concern is how much time and how easy it was for Aziz to cross the
Yeah,
ball.
so we've
And
given him loads of time to just whip it in, and it's a dangerous cross because it's obviously an in-swinger. So it's one of those, like you said, the keeper comes for it and it doesn't get on the end of it, then it becomes really problematic. So I think it was a dangerous cross, and then Ramsey's just got himself tied up in knots. And
I think it's more, to be fair, if I was looking at the negatives towards it, I actually think it's more on Ramsey for his position. It's
Yeah.
very all over the place.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, do you feel Kaminsky did anything wrong?
No,
I don't
think
know
it was
what more
massively on
you're
Kaminsky.
meant to do.
I do think when you look back at it, and we are picking at the bare bones of this, but I think their player was very marginally offside when the ball got played in. Now, obviously, we don't have VAR in the Championship, so it's irrelevant anyway, and it was so marginal.
He was offside, but I can understand why he didn't.
Yeah.
And in full speed,
Oh, yeah,
Championship, it's near.
The lino's not
Score,
going to
yeah.
probably be able to see that, but and to be honest, in the grand scheme of things, it made no difference anyway.
I think they're talking points if you lose 1-0.
Yeah, of
Then-
course.
then
Like
it's-
we're not going to go over that and hammer that. But one thing I will say is, like, you're right, Ramsey probably didn't cover himself in glory there, because what he really needed to do was get some sort of touch on the ball before, or get the right side of him and actually sort of make it
But
difficult.
it felt kind of all day with Ramsey that he was
He had
getting
bad-
involved in
bad
these
game.
really weird tussles where he's pulling people all over the shot. And I've seen quite a few Millwall fans who kind of said similar, but he felt quite out of control in the
Yeah,
game. He
he
never
did.
really felt his confident, calm self. Yeah.
Oh, he made some strange decisions all over the park in that game, and that was probably the start of it. But going that down 1-0 down that early makes it so difficult. We knew it would be a tough place to go anyway, but then you go 1-0 down, and we're not a team that are looking like we're going to score goals at the moment either. So once you go 1-0 down, you're like, where the hell are these goals going to come from?
Well, I think it's 1-0, and then you hope that realistically we know we don't score many goals, so we're probably in a territory of a 1-1 draw if we're really going to try and drag something out. I thought we responded quite well, to be honest. But the one thing I will say with our response is, and it reminds me a little bit of that Derby second half, it felt like we responded quite well, but there still is just a lot of passing side to side. I thought we were a little bit more direct with some movement. I thought we definitely looked a bit more positive on that. But that final third and that creating a chance, the only one we really
We had that
had
good
was
move, didn't we, where
yeah.
Campbell got played in.
Campbell got played in.
Good save from the keeper. I think, to be honest, the angle of the strike was difficult.
Yeah.
I think, and he did strike it fairly well. Keeper's made a decent save, but that was a little glimpse of, like, okay, we could pick them open a little bit if we do get the ball forward, but that was about it.
When I felt if the game carried on in that light, I still think they were the more dangerous. And look, we can say about that period, but then I think there was a couple of chances. There was one that was crossed in. I can't remember who got beaten, but
Aziz.
it went into Aziz and he just miskicked it. But that definitely could have been 2-0 and probably should have been.
Yeah.
And then I think what might go down as up there with miss of the season.
Yeah,
I think it was Aziz who got past, just danced through the midfield, danced past. I want to say it's Croy Anderson, who once again I thought had a terrible game. And we will go on to that one when we get in later. But it's sensational ball, and I don't know how he's missed it. It felt very much. It really reminded me of the very famous Scottish Chris Uolumu has missed it.
I think he's gone to strike it and he's opened his foot up a bit and it's sort of spooned off.
Yeah,
it was a bad miss.
But that's where, and I think we'll carry on through the game. But that probably sums up that first half. Look, they could have been 2-3 up, but it felt like one of those games that, look, we conceded the early goal. We had some good spells, albeit doing nothing with that. They looked dangerous. They looked like probably the more likely team to score, but we were going into the half-time 1-0.
Yeah.
And what were we going to see as a response? The second half, and my God, what an absolutely terrible showing that was. There was nothing.
Well, I think so they took Chambers off at half time. Jones did, but Chambers, weirdly, was one of the better players on that pitch in that first half. He showed willing to get forward. It was his debut, so he's obviously like wanting to make a good impression.
I thought weirdly with starting him, we did feel more balanced. It
Yeah.
shows how much of an issue that left wing back role has been, not having someone who's actually that
Comfortable
role.
in
Yeah,
that
comfortable
position.
in that position. Because I did feel that was a big part of why we actually felt a little bit more comfortable in those, albeit we went 1-0 down, that maybe starting half an hour.
But then it's going back to square one, because you end up dropping TC back into left wing back where he's completely uncomfortable, and then that creates that situation where we're naturally getting penned back because we've got players again playing in positions that they shouldn't be.
And also Jones coming out after the game saying that he felt he had 45 to 60 minutes.
Yeah,
60 minutes there. It just doesn't.
Very odd.
It's very odd decision making.
Yeah.
But yeah, second half really just terrible.
Toothless.
You had Aziz who scored, who was marginally offside, but that's probably a telling sign of kind of where we're going. To be fair, hold out to the 81st minute. Taylor with the header, diabolical defending, but
embarrassing defending, really. Yeah, you've literally let one of their absolute giants just walks in and just plant his head on the ball. Yeah, I think 2-0, we were like, okay, curtains. We knew probably at 1-0 that we weren't going to get back in. But
and then we go into the latter parts of extra time, and 92nd minute, Burke giving away the penalty.
Burke being a Burke.
Burke being a Burke, yes.
Yeah, bad tackle. He's just caught him with his trailing leg as he slid. Missed the pen, to be fair.
Dreadful penalty.
It was a terrible pen. Decent.
Do you think decent? It's a weird save.
It was, because
he caught it back.
Yeah,
dived to the right, and then
I thought he was going to spin off the pitch.
Yeah, it's a very strange save. I mean, he saved the pen, so I can't be too critical, but it's a very odd one.
Yeah, it was a weird save.
Bundled back in.
It did. You even with that, the desire for our players to get back onto the line. I don't know. Maybe we couldn't have done anything, but it's like we saved the pen and it still ends up in the back of the net. Do you know what I mean? That just shows where we're at the moment.
Yeah, and then we go on to a minute later, and that was the one that really, really angered me, because to me that header that Ramsey goes for, and it was just aimless, and it also felt just like I want to get off the pitch.
Yeah,
and you can't take that attitude. But it's just, I'd say 3-0 bad, 4-0 terrible. Like there has to be a damage limitation when you're playing against rivals. And I just, that one really summed it up. And I can't imagine what Nathan Jones was thinking inside of that, because we know for any criticism you want to throw at him, he's
passionate.
He's very passionate, and the one thing he wants is his players to run through brick walls. And see your team just giving up at that stage is
it's unacceptable. I think as well, like for the fans, like all of the Charlton fans, to be fair, because we're now in the firing line for some true criticism from Millwall fans and actually fans from around the league, because they're seeing us getting pretty outplayed week in, week out, getting spanked by multiple teams now. The shots against stats in most games is bloody abysmal. So we're becoming real targets for criticism in that respect. But this is a derby game, and you've got fans that have actually gone. You sold out the away end. Obviously, we were always going to, but those fans have been subject to absolute, abuse. Yeah, no one would want to have been there. I mean, you could see it actually, because the away end completely. By the end, probably when we went 2 or 3 down, they left because they don't want to be there for that. So
understandable. As much as this one pains me to say as well, but I think there is credit where credit's due. I was quite impressed with Millwall. I think they are.
We
a good
knew
team.
before the game they were going to.
Yeah, I thought Alfie Doughty had a really good game.
Aziz is
very solid. Aziz was
really dangerous.
He was on it that day, and that's what you need. You need certain players taking kind of control of the game, and with him, as I say, I was very impressed. And I do
Kramer.
Kramer was good. Albeit, once again, we didn't really give them too much in the defensive side to test up against. But they are, as I say, credit where credit's due. And as much it hurts me, and as much I'd love to be sitting here saying I weren't impressed with them and it was all on us, they still had to do the job. They still had to officially.
No, they did their job.
Dismantle us, and they did in the end. So
yeah, they did. It's painful for us, but they were the much better team, and they deserved the 3 points.
And I thought it was interesting. I saw a video or a comment online as well to say that, in many ways, I do think Millwall play probably similar to what Jones kind of thinks
I
his
think it's
team
probably where he wants
us to be, because I
still
actually look at
physical, but play
quite
good
physical.
football.
They play quite quick counter football. They're not always the most pretty on the eye, but they're ruthlessly efficient.
Yeah.
And I actually think I do kind of agree with that. They're just kind of that level, many levels above.
What's
clearly
quite
of
nice
the
with
day.
Millwall is they've got that element of like big boys, so like you've got Kramer, Taylor, players like that, Cooper, but then you've also got the quick, pacey players that are really dangerous getting crosses in. So you've got Aziz, you've got Doughty, so they've got a good blend of sort of and quality players as well.
Yeah.
They're players that are probably a level above what we have at the moment. So yeah, fair play to them. Fair play.
Yeah, let's stop praising them.
Yeah,
it's hurting my soul. So there's the game. As I say, it's quite a quick one to go over, because it's just quickly going over the goals, and it's a terrible performance. But let's go a little bit more into then the kind of breakdown. I think, as I say, we can break it down into kind of 3 areas. The one definitely to start with, and I think there's a lot of talking points in there, is that starting 11. And
I wasn't massively impressed when I saw the lineup, to be fair.
No, I wasn't at all. I was gobsmacked to see Roy Anderson in there. I thought he looked out his depth against Derby. So what we think putting him into, I don't know if there's just the sheer, we can run round, he's athletic, this, that, the other. I thought he looked just as much a fish out of water. I thought at times his tracking is diabolical. I'm sorry, I've seen him, the amount of times he just gets run past like he's just not even there is criminal. Gillespie, oh God, again, pretty terrible. And I don't think he's the worst defender, because
No, I was actually going to say he didn't have his worst game.
No, Ramsey definitely took the crown on that.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I just looked at it again, and I just think it just felt so negative, and so it's offering so much respect to the opposition. And I thought that against Derby, and it frustrated me, and I thought even more today. There's still got to be some fight and some dynamic sides to that squad. And as much as we can look at the players that we got at our disposal, I mean, probably a good time to go on to it. We felt that with that, a good thing we could do is look at and see what do we actually think as a system, and kind of the other options that Jones isn't going to do, but we could kind of play with.
Yeah.
And I'll bring up on screen something that we kind of came up with as the kind of players we've got, and how it might kind of put together a different system. And that is playing a different formation, not showing as much respect, and sorting out some of the holes we've got. I mean, with the system we've got there up on the screen now, we've got wing-backs that can actually overlap and play off a winger in front of them. We've still got a solid base of a midfield. We've still got players who, when someone pushes out, we can play that solid, compact side. You can still give wingers, when we've got probably arguably our biggest threat outlet is TC, with his pace, we're not playing him in his natural position. Well, let's play a system that works for that.
Yeah.
Rob Apter at the beginning of the season is a player who we were all impressed with. Yes, he looked like he had moments where we needed to kind of definitely fine-tune him, but he was getting balls in the box,
But these are players as well that played in the right positions will stretch the game. They'll give us that. You said about how Jones likes to play that counter-attacking style football. Perfect. Like, those give us the 2 outlets on the left and the right. Pace, danger, players that are going to push the ball up the pitch. And actually having the 2 sitters, Rankin, Costello and Coventry, they cover, for example, like you said, if the wing-backs want to get a bit further forward, they can sit in. All of a sudden, you've got a team that actually, when we're on the front foot, we're able to actually attack with pace and power and a bit of skill. And Apter and Campbell are both incredibly dangerous players on their day if they're on it.
Yeah, when Apter needs, I don't know. I sit really between 2 things on Apter, which is I don't know if it is just the fact of his age and Jones doesn't see quite certain things, or whether there genuinely has been some kind of like falling out or something. Because I find it so bizarre how ostracised he's been, because it's not even like he's getting minutes coming on.
Very rare.
Very rarely. And then he looks really rusty, understandably. And I kind of, as I say, I do feel sorry. And then there's an argument to say, well, look, if that's what we're doing to him, why aren't we then looking at him going out on loan? I don't agree with that, but it just seems like it's a bizarre scenario.
Yeah, it is. I think we've got players in there that could bring that attacking threat that we are so desperate for right now. And I think we are, like you said, we're showing teams far too much respect in the terms of setting up almost in a very defensive way. And even just having like Dykes up top, I like it in a way, because he is a sort of bit of a bully boy, and we've got an outlet. but he's got to have stuff around him. He's sort of a lone wolf up there, just trying to sort of bound his way through.
But with a system like the one we've kind of said there, the beauty you've also got is we've got a plethora of different strikers. We've got the Kelman who's slightly younger, Godden who's the sniffer dog. We've got Lyndon Dykes who is kind of plays the game dirty. We know he's a very experienced. We've got Miles Lieburn who on his day we know can also cause a lot of problems.
Yeah.
There's loads of different styles we could put up there, but it seems like this sheer desire to play this one system and keep trying to just put square pegs in round holes is just bizarre. And there's other, I mean, when you look at it, for example, selection choices today, and we talk about Roy Anderson, why the hell is Coventry on the bench?
Yeah.
And I understand there can be fitness concerns, but if you're bringing him on at half time, he's got 45 minutes of legs in him. Start him for the 45 minutes and bring Karoy, who maybe is not the most technically gifted player, on towards the latter part of the game when their players are a bit more tired.
We need an engine.
It makes no sense.
No.
Why are we bringing Ibby Fuller on in a game? I call for Ibby Fuller to come into this starting lineup and come into the squad more often. But if Jones's mindset is the fact that clearly he doesn't want to overwhelm a young player, he doesn't want to play him too much, why the hell are you bringing him on halfway into a derby game where we're not playing very well?
Yeah.
So you're chucking him in at the deep end there in an absolute cauldron, but you won't play him in other games.
Yeah.
It's bizarre choices that just aren't making sense. And you hit the nail on the head earlier as well. Campbell coming on and dropping back into the wing-back role, and then just...
When he was really the only spark in that first half, he was the only one to break the line and get a shot away. Literally, that was one of our only shots in the whole game. And then as soon as we drop him back, we've literally got nothing on that side.
I can't take any
really
judgment on any striker.
No,
because I think what we're handing them and what we're giving them is just absolute.
I just think Dykes. He had that one strange decision from the referee where he sort of did manage to get in front of his defender, and he actually got dragged down. He managed to stay on his feet, and then the ref gave a foul against.
Do you know, it would be much more of a talking point, and it doesn't make a difference on the game anyway. But at the time, it was strange. I think we were 1-0 down, but still, I think Millwall, no matter what, would have gone on.
Yeah,
it was I
can't
get my head around it. It's one of the most bizarre decisions. The only thing that happens is Lyndon Dykes getting pulled kind of.
You see his shirt
all over
always
the
dragged
place.
up.
Yeah, and
yeah,
I don't know what he's in there. It's bizarre.
Yeah, weird decision that, but like that was sort of an example of Dykes being sort of determined, and I think actually Dykes should probably walk off that pitch with his head held relatively high, because I think he was one of the only ones that you could say looked as if he was actually giving everything. He did run around like pretty hard. But like you said, he gets no service today. So like, what's he supposed to do? The one ball over the top, he actually did do a really pretty good job.
Yeah.
You can't really analyse the strikers in that game because we didn't really offer anything.
So on that side, I think we probably know the answer to this, and it frustrates us every time we discuss it, but do you think Nathan Jones, because clearly today after his post-match, when it comes to that system, you could see he was clearly visibly annoyed at certain individuals, and he tried to say kind of certain, then say everyone, and I'm sure he was annoyed at everyone, but it seemed like there was definitely particular performances he was disappointed in. Do you think there is a world where we see him trying different kind of systems or formations? It seems like the only iterations we've seen of any changes so far are minor adjustments to what we currently play, where you maybe box the midfield instead, maybe you try and play out a bit wider, but it predominantly...
The wing-backs thing's got to be dropped at some point because it just isn't working. Like, I'm happy for us to play a straight back four, to be honest, and have two natural left and right, a natural left and a right back, which we can still fit in that team. We've got the players for it. And play some actual wingers so that we can, like I said, like the one we obviously that lineup that we put up on the screen, at least it gives you that outlet higher up the pitch.
Well, I think the only concern to any system like that when we're wing players, I think we've got players who drop into wing roles very well. We've got criminally low depth when it comes to that. So you had TC out for a game where you need to take him off.
Yeah.
Really, we're probably getting a Tantoga. The option, it looks like I don't think he has yet.
Stop maybe. But okay, if that's the case, then we've still got a week to 2 weeks left in the market. Get a couple of players in that can.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I think what we need is actually like not necessarily electric pace in that role. We need actually like that more experienced winger who maybe isn't blessed with pace, but similar to Murphy.
Yeah, you
Top,
mentioned it a
left
few
winger
weeks
or-
ago.
yeah,
Yeah, someone
Liverpool,
along
I
those
think
lines.
it
So
is.
yeah, he's a force. Man.
But yeah, like a player like that, he's just got that experience head, and then you've got a bit like we have now in the striker role. We've got a few different avenues we can go down. Maybe we also need that, and someone who knows the game a bit better. But it just seems this fierce reliance on just this one system and minor iterations of it is doing us so much damage. And I think a lot
Well,
of damage has been done off it already. But if we carry on, it seems
but
like
what
the definition of insanity.
what
isn't it?
people are now concerned about as well is that I've heard quite a few people saying Jones has lost the dressing room, and in a weird way, you can start to see where players will happily play out of position for a while, but if they're consistently played out of position, it hinders them.
Mm-hmm.
It starts to really hinder their sort of ability to really be effective in what they're best at. We've seen it with TC, we've seen it with others where they actually are just being held back in terms of what they're actually capable of. But two, what it also does is if stuff starts going wrong in a game, they'll be like, well, I'm being played out of position here. It gives them a bit of an out almost to say, like, you know, I'm doing my best here, but this is not a natural place for me to be. And so this is where the positioning of players becomes problematic when you start, like you said, putting square pegs in round holes. Because ultimately you're creating a system where there is actually a forced system that isn't effective anymore. It doesn't work.
And there maybe is a place for it in the future, for example, when
Yeah.
he's got all the players he wants and a bit more championship experience. I can see the benefits of how it works, and it's very similar to, like, you see, there's a lot of teams who have played it over the years, and it has been incredibly
I
successful.
think
Probably
it became really popular in the Premier League.
There's Chelsea.
Yeah.
Chelsea had a
Yeah.
title-winning season where I'm pretty sure it's Victor Moses who kind of created that role of, like, right winger, right wing back, defensive and attack. And it is a system that has its place, but you've got to have the right setup.
You're talking about high-level players as
But
well.
I think even at lower, like, you can in the Championship recreate that, but you still
Yeah.
have to have the players. And if you haven't got the squad to do it, just carrying it on. And the fact for weeks and weeks and weeks now, we've played Ono Hernandez, we played James Bree out on the
Yeah.
wrong side out there who was in terrible form, and we thought putting him out into. Like, there's got to be a
Yeah.
point where that's where I can understand the complete and utter frustration. And the realistic side when it comes to that is that's why, in no way, I'm pretty furious at what Jones is doing in those regards yet, but I'm still not in the kind of.
But what I would say as well, though, Jones is not helping himself with the fans that are getting fed up now, and I think I'm sitting in that category a bit more than you are now, because I do feel that actually, how long can you go on not changing? You've got to be flexible, and you've got to be able to adapt your tactics if stuff is going disastrously wrong week in, week out, which it is. We're in awful form at the moment. We're in relegation form. And actually, if that doesn't spin around, then we are in huge, huge trouble.
Well, I think that's where the concern comes, especially when you look at it, is because over the actual positioning in the table, if we were looking at this, and we've said this so many times, if it was consistent that we'd been picking up points, dropping points, picking up points, I think you could look at that table and actually say we're quite happy. I think why that table looks so much more perilous is we've gone from this incredible bit that got us up here, but if we carry on the rest of the season, say the last 15 games worth of form, we will get relegated.
But also, do you see that turning around? Like, on current performance levels and in current sort of ability of the players we've got in the positions they're playing in, can you realistically see it turn?
So I can.
Yeah.
I can. And the main reason I can is because, as I say, my views were very much in that mindset previously. And I don't think it really makes a difference, or a huge difference, the fact that you're going from a League One position, because we were in a League One position, but we were in the absolute doldrums. We'd had 2 or 3 seasons in a row sitting around that, almost like relegation scrapping. And I think my view to it is there can be a game that just re-injects that passion, re-injects that. And at the time, we had a terrible home game, which I think we drew 0-0 or 1-1.
Yeah.
One of the worst games of football I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then we went, and I'm pretty sure we beat Northampton 4-0. And
Crawley was the terrible
and
game.
that kick-started our whole season. And I do believe you can have games that we're getting a bit late for it, because we're getting now into February games. But at some point, you can have that game that just puts the fire back in your belly. I mean, let's move on to. We've kind of touched a little bit on both of those a little bit, but I think the next one really is on the players. And we discussed there. I think there has been a lot of talk around whether it looks like Jones is kind of losing the dressing room.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I see that. I don't think you go from the kind of passion. I don't get the feeling in interviews it feels that way. I think it is a squad that is so devoid of any confidence.
Yeah.
I don't think it's they've lost faith in Jones personally.
No.
Do you?
I don't necessarily think it's gone that far yet, but I do think there are certain players in there getting frustrated. That's the sort of impression that I get, and I think that comes down to the fact that they are having to play in positions they just don't want to be playing in, and I think I would put TC in that category. I think he is one that you can visibly see sometimes just getting really frustrated. And that's not to say that Jones doesn't give him those opportunities to play in his natural position. He does. But actually, when Jones does, he plays much better. He plays to the sort of levels, or at least tries to hit the levels that we expect to see from him. So I think there's elements of players getting frustrated. That I think is definitely a thing. I don't think he's lost the dressing room, because I think naturally Jones, the way he is, I think he wouldn't allow that to happen. I think he would probably get the boot before that happened, personally, because I think the owners would start to see that actually just it's not working anymore. But I think, like you said though, we saw in that annual directors meeting that went out during the week, they have already stated they're above the sort of points tally that they were looking to be at.
They re-corrected it to points per game, but the original is they're above their KPI.
KPI, yeah, exactly, the business sort of. But what I would say is I would arguably agree with that. I think we're there or thereabouts to where we probably expected to be at this stage in the season if you were looking at the beginning of the season. The difficulty, like you said, is that we've seen what we're capable of towards the beginning of the season, how well we sort of started, and how a massive drop off has actually panicked people, because the last thing we want is to go back down to League One, because we've fought so hard to get out of it, and we know how disgusting that league is.
So do you think with the players, like, why do you feel they're all the reasons we're discussing there? Because I think the thing I find concerning is gone from we'll run for a brick wall for this side to what feels like we're losing all our battles in midfield. We don't look really energetic as we go into the game, and I know there's a lot of players there who have played a lot of minutes, especially with the injuries we've had, but still it just doesn't quite feel the same. It feels heads are down, there's frustration, there's this, there's that. Do you think that's all just down to those bits? Do you not think that? Because to me, I also think there's got to be some responsibility on the players.
There has to be.
And I think what we really, really rely on in these moments as well is the leaders in the squad. And I think you've got to look at people like Lloyd Jones, you've got to look at people like Doherty, to be honest. And I know, but he is club captain. I think you've got to look at players like that, the experienced heads in there, where I'm happy we've got kind of Godden back, we've got Luke Berry in there, we've got Lyndon Dykes who's come in. Lyndon Dykes is someone who I'm sure has been in relegation scraps before, and I'm sure his experience is of it. But I think there has got to be also some responsibility on the players to drag themselves out.
It's a funny one. I was sat watching the game, and Sophia was sat with me, and I said, "Oh, Jones is like got to be careful that he's not going to get sacked like fairly soon if this carries on." And she said, "Why can't the players get sacked?" Because she makes a good point. Like, weirdly, she's not a football fan at all, and she doesn't really understand it. But actually, the players have to stand up and take some responsibility. And it's true. This is what happens: is managers put players out there. Now, they might not get the tactics or the formation right all the time, but you expect a level of performance no matter what you put out.
But if you put all your effort into it and you see blood, sweat and tears on the pitch, but the formation and the system is what has hindered us and that's what's caused the problems, that's fine. I just think that the fight and desire that we're seeing at the moment is so incredibly lacking.
Or it's in really, really minimal amounts. You'll see like one game where we look like we've shown a bit more fight, but then it just disappears.
It's not one game, it's 20 minutes of one game.
That's what I mean, but it just disappears. And like you said, even in one game, you can have a spell of it. We need to see that for 90 minutes consistently throughout the rest of the season to be able to stay up. If you, in the Championship, if you just roll over, you will get steamrolled every week. And that is ultimately what's happening at the moment. We are getting steamrolled. And it's because other teams are showing more desire than us. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to the final one of our holy trinity of complaints. Nathan Jones, and I think I think it's a really interesting one. I think we've covered a lot of points when it comes to it, but where do you think he goes from here? Because I think he is the key to try and now sort this. He's got to, with him and his coaching team, have got a hell of a job to invigorate some of that confidence. I think they've got to look at themselves with this system and the lack of kind of what it's doing and the glaring issues that are being caused out of it. Where do you think Nathan Jones is sitting tonight, and what's he thinking? And
I think he will have genuine concerns as to where the squad currently, like you said, confidence is at an all-time low at the moment. And I
because
think
remember, on top of this, Nathan Jones has got a bit of a lucky hit in there as well. Because when we look at those last 5 or 6 performances, we've got the Coventry game, which we actually played quite well.
yeah,
But Blackburn, we just capitulated.
yeah,
We've had the Derby game, the Millwall game, but we've got that Sheffield United, which is the only win in there,
yeah.
and we were bloody lucky.
How
Like
did
that
they
is
play?
that is a once in a bloody lifetime game, because we should have been. What happened today? I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
would
we'd have
happened.
lost if
Yeah,
we.
but I think what happened today would have happened. I think it would have been a 3 or 4 or 5-0 defeat.
Yeah.
The way that game was going. So I think arguably our current kind of situation is probably looking a bit better than it maybe even should.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think our confidence on the floor, and I think the only way to build that back up is to obviously start getting some results and performances in the bag. The difficulty with that is, how do you do that? Like, how do you do that with the players you have, 2 with the clear inability to sort of adapt your tactics, which, are we going to see him tweak it? I don't know. I actually have no idea. Maybe he's reached the stage where he's going to think, I have no choice but to tweak this up, because otherwise, if I continue playing that formation with these players, it's going to be the same result week in, week out, and we are just going to keep losing games.
Well, and I get the feeling probably there's going to be some widespread changes in the squad again, because he'll want to prove a point. There's certain positions he can't do much, but there'll be ones he definitely wants to kind of make a point of.
Yeah.
That, to me, is also a concern of Jones. He still doesn't seem to know his best starting lineup, and the amount of chopping and changing. For example, the centre mids. Yes, look, there's a lot of responsibility on them. There's a lot of responsibility on the system, but the other side is continuity. And the problem is, when we're just chopping and changing these starting lineups, it's also very difficult for them to get to know each other and kind of how they're each playing. And when you don't know whether you're going to have Roy Anderson or Coventry next to you, it's quite a vast
But
difference.
at the start of the season, it was Doherty and Coventry was like the 2 main in the middle, wasn't it? So we've gone from that being our sort of starting lineup for the majority of the first half of the season. All of a sudden, Doherty's completely banished from the team. You don't really see him anymore. Like you said, you got Anderson started to get rotated in. We had Rankin Costello, who we didn't see for months, and then all of a sudden he comes in.
Well, Anderson doesn't make sense to me, because like Doherty, I could be so critical of, but 10 times rather see Doherty in the midfield than I would Anderson. 'Cause at least he's got experience at this level.
Works hard.
Yeah, works hard.
Which is basically what Anderson brings.
Yeah, I just there's some really bizarre decisions, and I think he's got this weird loyalty in like bursts.
Yeah.
And I just can't quite get my head round. And do you think he knows his best lineup now? Do you think he's panicking at the moment? Is he trying to make points? Because it feels a little bit. Well, we've discussed this in the past. I think towards the mid part of the season, where I said it reminds me of Football Manager, when your tactics not quite working, you start really panicking and like changing everything around. Like, oh, you're not good enough, so you go in.
Talking about Football Manager, though, I did think today, you know, on Football Manager, when you used to lose a big derby game, especially if you got tanked, you almost knew you were like a game away from being sacked, and that's kind of
the board have expressed their disappointment.
Yeah, because it's such a big game to the fans. And actually, I did think that today. I was like, if Jones was, playing Football Manager, he would be on the ropes right now, and I think he is a little bit on the ropes. I mean, I don't think the owners are ready to push the button yet.
But like everything, and I'm not in that camp, but there's only so long you look at something, and there will be a point where like owners do have a decision, and you do have to turn it around at some point, and I'm confident he will, but he's got to start doing it quickly. And
he's not got many games. If we lose, like say we lose another 2-3 on the bounce, you have to look at a change.
Yeah,
because we are getting to that like crucial time of the year now.
Well, I would say there's 4 games coming up that now, if you look at forms of said teams and the position we're in, we've got probably our best chance of the season to pick up a kind of plethora of points. Because
said that a few times, haven't we?
Yeah.
We had a nice run of games.
We did. Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah, we did.
Didn't go so well.
Let's just look back on it. Yeah, not great. Well, look, I think that looks over everything. With Nathan Jones, I say it's
a split camp though. From what I've seen online, I think there were a lot of people swaying into the Jones out.
Well, no, I think there's a big chunk of fan base. If he went tomorrow morning, they'd be okay with it. I do still feel with that, and I might be wrong. And like everything in football is a matter of opinion, and there's no instant right or wrong. You've only got to look at Norwich with sacking Manning. There were people who I think most agreed it was probably the right time, but you see the transformative side of that. But then we also have seen in the past the not so transformative side. And we've seen, if we've learnt lessons over the kind of the League One years and a lot of our history, I don't think that just jumping at that is the right decision. And would we be where we are if we'd jumped to make that decision when Jones was struggling previously?
No, and it can be a slightly knee-jerk sometimes when you go through a bad spell. We have to remember we are in this position with a terrible run of results. So that proves that Jones can actually get results because we did start the season really, really strongly. So he's got that in his locker. But whether he can turn it around, he has to be more adaptable with his tactics and with the sort of personnel that he puts in certain positions. If he doesn't, ultimately it will be his own downfall and it will be on his head. That is what happens with
and I do believe managers like Jones as well do get people on their back quicker, and I think one he is fiercely stubborn, and you saw it with managers. There's a lot of managers out there who do have that trait. Ange Postecoglou's the best one I can probably think of, where it's just like, I will keep doing my way and no one else will tell me otherwise. I also think with Jones, he doesn't play the most pretty football, especially under Charlton when we haven't seen it. When you play negative, pretty tough to watch football at times, when it's going wrong, your anger builds up much quicker. I think if we played much more free-flowing football and we've been pulled apart a few times, you maybe don't jump on it.
But we could forgive it more at the start of the season because we were playing maybe not the most attractive football, but we were playing as a team and we were actually putting the effort in. But now we're like playing in an unattractive way, but just losing week in, week out. That's not gonna be acceptable to the fans. So.
Well, important for Nathan Jones, and we'll come off that conversation now, but we will highlight how important his next few fixtures are. And one that I think if you had have asked me 6 weeks ago, I'd have looked at this fixture with quite a concern. Leicester away, a 12:30 kickoff next Saturday. Just lost to Oxford at home.
Their manager, Cifuentes, or whatever his name is, I think he's favourite for the sack now in the Championship. And I think I saw online someone reposted they've got an emergency meeting. So let's just hope he stays in for one more game.
But we've had it once this season, and that was Sheffield United, where they had brought Wilder in and we beat them.
We did, that's true. But what it does show is that they are in a bit of turmoil. They're a team that obviously came down last season from the Prem. And we actually played them at the Valley and we lost, but we played really well in that game. I know it was a while ago. But it just shows that we are capable of putting up a good fight against them. So if they're a team in low confidence and so are we, it's going to be a battle of
just a terrible battle.
yeah, exactly. It could just be one of those games where it's like a bit of quality.
But I don't think. Look, I think it's a mixture of what we need out of that game. I do actually think, as much as we've said it's points, it is 100%. We need more points on the boards, and that is so important. I actually think, though, just as much at this stage as well, we're screaming out for a proper performance. And I think I could take, as much as 3 points is exactly what you want, and if you could do that playing awfully with a scrappy win or fortunate circumstances like the Sheffield United game. But I think at this stage, especially going into 3 home games on the trot with teams that we should 100% be looking at being able to pick points up from, I think a performance is just as important, and a 1-1 draw, for example, with a good performance in there might be just as important.
Yeah, and every point is massive for us at this stage. So, yeah, I mean, a point away from home is always a good result in the Championship.
And I think with Leicester, no matter what form they're in as well, the one thing we have always got to have some respect over is they have still got some very good players in there. I mean,
some great players.
The one player who, whenever I seem to see scored, it's always a screamer, and we've seen it firsthand. Fatawu from Fatawu.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I think going into that game, as I say, I think really important game. Everyone is now. But the interesting one is, obviously, we've had our game with Portsmouth rescheduled now.
Yeah.
And that means we follow, after that Saturday, the Friday the 6th of Feb as a home game against QPR. Wednesday the 11th of Feb, a home game against Stoke.
Yeah.
And then a monumental Tuesday the 17th, our home game against Portsmouth.
Yeah, that's a huge game. You're playing up against a direct relegation rival there, so the other two before that are just as important in a way.
Well, I think
because-
QPR's a tough game, but at home,
Yeah,
I think we've got to be looking at it saying, look, we want to. That's not one that I think we want to be giving them too much respect. And I look at that and think, in the running we've got and the kind of games, that's a pretty vital one to be looking to take all 3 points.
Yeah.
The Stoke game at home, once again, that would have looked really, really quite awful not long ago. And you look at what they did to us at their place, but actually they're struggling a bit more for form. And
Yeah, I think like we said it again last week. Every game in the Championship, you look at the fixture and you think, oh, that might be all right. That's going to be really tough, and they surprise you. You know, somebody isn't on it on the day. We have been that team that's not been on it on the day for a long time, so we're actually now looking at every fixture thinking, bloody hell, that's a tough one. Which we naturally will anyway, because let's be honest, we're one of the lower teams in the league, and we're coming up against teams that have got much bigger, better squads than us. But at the same time, if we can put a performance in that we know we are capable of, we could see us picking some points up. But it has to turn around.
I think
really,
and I think when I look at those 4 games, Leicester away, QPR at home, Stoke at home, Portsmouth at home, I think with where we are and where we've kind of put ourselves into, we're probably looking at needing to pick up minimum 7 points from those games.
well, yeah, well,
No, but realistically, if we're going to say we've come out those games well, that's probably where we're looking.
yeah, that's probably what we need. Whether we're going to get it is a completely different matter, and I think.
I think you
Yeah,
can't have a better opportunity. If Jones is looking at this whole season, a better opportunity to try and turn it around. 3 home games in a row at this Leicester team who are in pretty much turmoil and all over the place. You couldn't have a much better situation.
I know what
you must be looking at.
No,
saying,
I get what you're saying, but home games at the moment, not sure how much of an advantage that is for us because, like I said, there's unrest in the fans now. So if we start those games poorly and we go 1-0 down, I do think you are going to start to feel that in the ground. I think it's really vitally important that those home games we get off to good starts now.
Yeah.
We have to, because otherwise, no, the fans, seriously, they will. We've been at games, so I mean, we know what it was like when we were dreadful in League One. The atmosphere is sort of appalling because we would like go 1-0, 2-0 down, and that was that. So we have to be really careful that we don't just throw games away early like we have been.
We do, but I also do feel on that if we can get a result in, say, one of the first games, say we get 3 points against QPR, I think we can also see the other side, which what the Valley can kind of bring as well. So
yeah,
so it's going to be an interesting. I think the next
buckle up.
The next 2 to 3 weeks is a pretty key part to our season, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. And also, let's not forget, we're still in the window, so whether we can bring a couple more bodies in, I think we're desperate for a couple more at least. Like, will the owners start to panic and think, actually, we've got to invest here? Yeah, I think they need to.
I think they do. They do.
We need to.
I think it's a balancing act. There's a lot of little things that need to fall into place now. I think new signings, management,
a bit of freshness, because actually we've seen already, like just Clark and Chambers coming in gives you a bit of a freshness that can actually spring you forward a little bit more and actually make you feel like, yeah, there are little green shoots coming out from different areas of the pitch.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, there we are. Oh, to be a Charlton fan.
Well, it's never easy. Like we knew, and to be fair, we knew this season wasn't going to be.
We also, as well, let's look at it. And as I say, as much as it all looks perilous at the moment, we are still sitting 18th. It's not. I say we could easily be having this conversation sitting in the relegation zone.
Yeah.
So there is, for every time where it feels like, and as I say, I sit there after the game and I lose my mind and you're angry and all this, but it is still very much in our hands.
Yeah.
And I think we have still got a situation there that can be turned around. There's many more that look more perilous.
Yeah.
We just need to see it soon. So.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring up the final one before we end things. Let's bring up that league table again. With the Oxford win, it's starting to. There's only 3 points between ourselves and the relegation zone now. Yes, definitely so. You've got Pompey in there as well. They've got 2 games in hand.
One is us, to be fair.
Yeah, the nice thing is we are in freefall, but we've also got West Brom and Blackburn who seem to be parachuting down with their lead weights on as well. So
like you said last week, actually, we've only got to be better than 2 other teams. Wednesday are down, so we've just got to get more points than 2 other teams, which in theory sounds not too difficult.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's wait and see. Well, look, thank you very much for listening. If you have liked the episode, please do remember to like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.